What's going on, everybody? Salute here, and today we are back with another video. And today we are looking at the solo barbarian push guide, and we're going to be covering everything you need to know for playing this, so make sure to stick around. We're going to be covering everything on how to make pulls, what are good maps, what are good mob types, how to pixel stacks, how to kill with guardians. So everything you need to know we will be covering here. This will be a fairly long video, so if you're in a hurry, do make sure to check the comments for timestamps. But if you want to know everything, do make sure to stick around for the whole thing. And also, if you're the kind of person who likes Diablo 3 content, do make sure to hit that subscribe button, as I do post weekly content on anything from guides to clears, to Diablo news, Diablo 4 news, so yeah. And also, if you enjoy the video or find it useful in some kind of way, do make sure to also hit that like button. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now, before anything else, I want to explain why you maybe want to listen to me. I'm currently ranked 8 on the leaderboards. I have cleared a 143 on the solo Barbarian leaderboards using this exact setup, so I do know how to play this and how to make good pulls. Now, in terms of stat priorities, that would be a list somewhere on the screen, so you can also see it. But some of the things we're going to do is we want to get about 40% cooldown reduction. This is so we have 100% uptime of Wrath of the Berserker, because Wrath of the Berserker is our biggest damage, but also damage reduction cooldown, so that is one of the things we need. After that, we want to stack as much area damage as we can, since area damage scales with the more enemies you have. And when we push high, we want to make really big pulls to the point where we can use the area damage to then kill it with the kill streaks. Now, we will have an entire section covering how to use kill streaks and everything, so don't worry. We will be covering that later. Now, let's go over the stat priorities for every single piece of gear. So, we are of course using the Little Rogue and Slanderer setup here, also called the Isvans. This gives us a lot of damage, but also damage reduction. So, for instance, the 2 sets. So, every time you spend resource, you gain 6% increased damage and armor. And this is stacks up to 5 times. So, big damage reduction. We are of course using the 6 piece of the race set. This gives us a lot of damage with Rend, and that is our main damage source. Now, to start off with, on your weapons, you want stuff like area damage and cooldown. If you can, of course, also get 10% damage. So the ideal stats here would be 10% damage, area damage, and cooldown reduction. You want at least 2 out of 3 of these, so you could also have it look like this. This is the kind of stuff you want. On your wings, you want, for instance, crit area damage, very strong, or you could get like crit cooldown, depends on what you find, but yeah, crit area damage or crit cooldown. And if you're like me and haven't found a good Band of Might, you want to use Obsidian Zodiac here with these stats. Otherwise, you would want a Band of Might with the same stats as this, so like crit cooldown or crit area damage. On the gloves, you would ideally want a quad vector, so it have like this, so crit area damage and cooldown. But these are pretty difficult to find, so if you can't, like a strength crit area damage or a strength crit cooldown is sufficient. On your shoulders, you want something like this, so you have your main stat, you have area damage, you have Rend. This could be a bit better if it also had cooldown, but as long as we have enough cooldown on the rest of the pieces, this is fine. Helmet is pretty standard, you just want strength of it and crit. You could also have strength always and crit chance, but something like this is more than capable. Chest piece, you want strength of it and wind damage, or strength always and wind. Now, your lamentation, this is one of the most important pieces of gear you can have, and what you need to look at first is the secondary. You need a very high secondary, and I would say a 145 plus at minimum. Even if you have to choose between a non-ancient and ancient, you have to get a high secondary. Most important thing. And then after that, get strength with always life if you can, or at least strength with and always. Those are more important stats. On the legs, we are of course using strength with and always. Very good. Just get always on everything you can. Boots here, you want all 4 stats. You want strength with, always, and armor. At least get the strength with and always. And as you might have seen, we are using always gems in both our slots here, and of course the cooldown one in our helmet as well. Mortix, you want elemental damage, strength, vid crit or always crit, depends on what you can find, but always is still a bit stronger. Now for your flavor, something like elemental crit cooldown is the best, but it could also be sufficient to have like always and then crit damage, area damage, stuff like that. Yeah, you don't need all these 4 stats. You could like swap one of them out for, let's say, area damage or main stat if that's a thing, if you can't find them, because they're very difficult to find like this. But these are the stats you're after. Now, there are 2 ways to go about it. You could either play with physical or you could play with lightning. I know for most of the people we have the physical setup first, because we're using the physical rune for speed. But if you can get lightning, that would be the best one. So as you can see here, we are using Lacerate. That is our lightning, and it does about, I think it's 17% more damage overall, so it's pretty strong. Now for the cube, I am currently using Ambler's Pride. This is a no-brainer. Attacking with Whirlwind also applies Rend, and the total damage of Rend is still over 1 second. You need this very strong. Now in terms of the armor slot, there are a few different variations. I'm here using Mantle of Channeling. This is a damage and damage reduction buff, but you can also go for something like Stone Gauntlets, right? So you have Stone Gauntlets here. This is a stacking armor increase, and as long as you have your Wrath going, you won't actually get the stun effect. I do, however, prefer the Mantle of Channeling, but it is up to you. If you're playing with Mantle of Channeling, you want the Nerfs of Steel, that is at the cheat death. But if you're playing with Stone Gauntlets, you would pick Brawler instead and get the damage from that. Now, I would recommend trying both of those variations out. I prefer the one with Mantle and cheat death, but you can also go Stone Gauntlets and Brawler. It's up to you. And of course, in cube, I'm using Band of Might. You can do however you want them, as long as you have Band of Might, Conversion of Elements, and Obsidian with Zodiac. It doesn't matter where you have them, just have all 3 of those and you'll be good to go. Now, skills and passives, we are using Wrath the Berserker. It doesn't matter what rune we pick, because we have Mortix Brace that gives us all the runes. If you didn't know, the Mortix Brace giving us all the runes gives us Insanity, that's a 50% increased damage increase, and also gives us Striding Giant, which is a damage reduction up to 50%. Very powerful. Here we have Battle Rage with Swords to Plowness. So the rage itself gives us your damage and a bit of crit chance, but the rune itself here, critical hit heals you and your pets for up to 21,000, right? And if you have, let's say, 50 mobs on you, you heal so much that like you heal your entire health bar in like 1 hit. So as long as you don't get 1 shot, you will heal through anything. We're here using Ancient Spear with Rage Flip. This is our pulling mechanic. This is a very crucial part on learning how to play, and I'll be covering that in the playstyle section. But this pretty much throws enemies behind you, allowing you to pull them further with you, allowing you to make big pulls in big areas. We're using Groundstorm here with Wrenching Smash. That pretty much just pulls enemies together, so you're able to nuke them down in 1 little area. You can pull mobs into your kill streaks. It's very strong. As shown before, we are of course using Rend here with Lacerate. This is simply to get the Rend so we can apply it manually. And also, if you don't have Rend on your bars, you won't get the elemental effect, so you need Rend on your bars. And you would want either Lacerate if you have lightning, or you want the physical one if you have physical elemental. For last build, we are of course using Whirlwind with Wind Shear. This combined with Ambler's Pride. So everything, like when you're spinning around, you apply your Rend. And also with having Wind Shear, you gain 1 fury for every enemy struck. So this is how we keep up our fury, so we can keep spinning and using all our spells. For legendary gems, we are using Tagak. This is a stacking damage and damage reduction gem. It increases per level, so you want to make sure you get as high as you can. We're using Bane of the Trap. This is our biggest damage multiplier we can have. Very strong. Get as high as you can as well. And for the last gem, we are of course using Bane of the Stricken. This is how we kill the Rift Guardian, and we stack it pretty fast using our Whirlwind applying the Rend. So to recap, we want to have about 40% cooldown reduction. It is going to be reset by setting the Zodiac, so we have Wrath uptime. We want to stack area damage as much as we can, and then we want to apply manual Rend to use the area damage. And also we want to have a Lamentation with high secondary. You can use either lightning or physical elemental depending on what you have, but lightning is stronger. In terms of the passives, we want Ruthless. This is an execution, especially helps a lot with Rift Guardians. We have Berserker Rage. This makes it so we deal 25% additional damage near maximum fury. This is almost a permanent buff, no matter what you're doing, where you are. So just 25% more damage, very strong. We have Vulnerable Carthus here. This reduces the cooldown of Wrath of Berserker by 30 seconds, allowing us for more uptime. And for the last one, I'm using Nerfs of Steel here, but if you want to, you could roll with Brawler. I prefer the proc here so we don't die, because dying can be very bad, then you lose your kill streaks. Now in terms of playstyle, there are a lot of things to cover, so let's start. First of all, in terms of maps, you want to have big open maps. It's very important to get big open maps, since this will allow you to pull enemies. As you can see here right now, I am pulling things together, right? I found an elite. I'm not just gonna go and stack on it. I want to pull it with me, and this is only possible in big open maps. You would want like a festering or battlefields, and a map like this can also work. This is like an average map, so I'm showing you how we will do this. So as you can see, I'm using my spear to throw the enemies over me so I can then move further with them. And I'm also keeping up my ground stomp while doing this. Now while this is happening, I'm not trying to do any single damage. I don't care about doing damage. All I'm doing right now is I'm making a big pool. Now I want to do a big pool because this will allow me to stack area damage, and then I can use this area damage to proc kill streaks. As soon as you clear over, let's say 120, 130, this is stuff you need to learn how to do. Otherwise you're not going to be very consistent in your clearing. Another thing is mob types. You need to have a good mob type that you can kill. For instance, here we have some big horrors. Those are good progression, but they're difficult to kill. But we also have a few small zombies. We have some maggots from the Maggot Lord Elite. So we have a lot of things that we need here, which is going to give us kill streaks, and it's going to give us high progression. Now what I normally do is I will pull either an entire map in 1, 2 or 3 rounds, depending on how I feel like it's going and how much I can pull them. Now it's better to take your time to pull enemies and make good pulls than trying to kill things when you don't have enough. Now you can see I have found here a corner of the map. This is a good place to stop because I can then drag enemies both from in front of us and also where we came from, and therefore I can make a good pull here in the corner. So at this point I feel like I have grouped things enough. Now all I want to do is damage, right? So you can see I'm using my ground storm to stack enemies on top of each other, called pixel stacking. Unfortunately this also lags up the game, that's why you can see me pausing the game. This is an indicator if you have enough enemies, if the game lags. At this point I start using my manual rend. Until this point I haven't cast a single manual rend, but if you look just over my whirlwind bar, you can see there's a little green bar. This indicates when I'm pressing a different spell. So this is usually when I'm pressing rend, so I'm spamming rend. Now what I'm doing right now, I'm getting to 15 kill streaks. As you can see here, I hit 15 and immediately the entire screen blows up. This is why we stack so many monsters, because then we get the kill streaks and the kill streaks do everything for us. Which is why you want to have at least 50, 100 enemies in every pull. As you can see here, I kill myself in the game, so to reset my stacks, right? I had over 200 kill streak stacks, and I don't want to have any more. I want to be able to do what we just did again, and I don't want the higher kill streaks because they are kind of bad, at least some of them. Here's another example. As you can see, I make another big pull here in a corner as well. I'm then starting to rend manually, and I'm also ground storming to stack the enemies directly on top of each other, which is called pixel stacking. As you can see again, we do a big explosion, we get 15 kills, and we immediately go from 15 to over 100, and we use the kill streak to kill stuff for us. Now if you want more examples of how we do this, make sure to check out my clear videos, where I have, for instance, the 141 clear had recently. I have that entire video up. You can go and watch that one if you want to see how to do pixel stacking and how to kill stuff. Now another thing I want to talk about is diminishing returns. So on your spear and your ground stomp, these builds are known as a crowd control effect, right? So we have a thing called diminishing returns in this game, which means that you can only crowd control an enemy a certain amount of times before it becomes immune to crowd control. So for instance, if you ever tried pulling an enemy with a spear, you probably noticed that you can maybe pull like 1, 2, 3 times, and then it stops being able to pull. This is because of diminishing returns. Now we need to know how to work our way around this. Now diminishing returns is a thing, so you can't just stun lock an enemy. Like imagine if you had a whiff gun and you're just able to stun lock it, it wouldn't really be that challenging, so that's why you have diminishing returns. Now when you attack an enemy, you apply CC effect to it. If you, for instance, you hit it with a spear or a ground stomp, you apply diminishing returns to it. And the only way to make it go away is to wait some time, right? So you can maybe pull it 2 times and then wait maybe 4 seconds before trying to pull it again. Now again, as you can see in the footage, this is why we stack area damage, because we make pulls like this. So we're able to just explode everything and then use kill streak to give us the rest. Now, Whiff Guardians are pretty easy to deal with. You pretty much just want to keep up your buffs, so keep up your Wrath of the Berserker, keep up your Battle Shout, and then of course keep up your Ground Stomp. And by that, of course, I mean keep up your Band of Might using Ground Stomp every 6 seconds or so. Now, in Whiff Guardian, you don't ever want to cast your Manual Rend, only if it's like a mob with a lot of small ads like Hamlin or Saxtrix, then you could do it. But if you have, you know, just a single target or a Whiff Guardian with maybe 2 or 3 ads, don't cast manual rend. Just do what I'm doing like this, whirlwind on it, and then stack up your stricken. Now it can vary quite a bit on how to kill each Rift Guardian. Most Rift Guardians are pretty easy. Wasteal here is one of the harder ones because you do have a one-shot mechanic, but you can avoid it. But yeah, Rift Guardians are pretty easy if you have enough time. It'll usually take a few minutes to kill a Rift Guardian. In this case, it took me about 4 in this clear here, because it's Wasteal, which is kind of difficult. So yeah, just rely on your stricken to stack up, and then of course deal a lot of damage and keep up your ground stomp and your buffs. So to recap, in terms of playstyle, you want to make big pools. You want to have a lot of enemies in there so you can ground stomp them together, so you can apply manual rend and then use the kill streaks to kill them for you. You want to keep your buffs up, you want to keep your band of might up, and you want to use your spear to pull enemies with you. And again, Rift Guardians are pretty easy to kill. Just stack up your stricken and keep up your buffs up on it. And for everything, just make sure to use the kill streaks. Pay a lot of attention to your kill streaks. This is the most important thing on how to play, not just this, but to do any kind of pushing in this season. Use the kill streaks. Also, if you play Bob this season, do make sure to check out my other guides. I have a T16 guide, I have a speed GR farming, and also have a lot of clears, you know, 141 clear, so you can see everything from how to farm and also how to clear high grey rifts. If you're the person who likes Diablo content, do make sure to hit that subscribe button since I do post weekly content. And also, if you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, do make sure to hit that like button. It helps me out a lot. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.